Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. A couple of weeks ago, I went to see the movie The Revenant, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. My brother and I went along, caught the film. Great movie. I've heard a lot of talk about The Revenant. There's a lot of talk about the fact that it was shot in natural light. So there's a lot of talk about the cinematography, which is really quite astounding. There's a lot of talk about the acting and whether or not it's going to get an Oscar nomination or whether any of the actors are actually going to win an Oscar. There was a lot of talk from some sectors about whether or not it had a substantial enough plot to be considered acceptable. And of course, a lot of people were talking about that bear attack, which was a pretty impressive scene, I have to say. The one thing, though, that I haven't really heard people discussing is the morality of The Revenant, because there is a really deep and I think very important moral and spiritual underpinning and some quite deep and profound themes that run thematically through this movie. On a spirituality side of things, there's a very profound and beautiful scene, which I won't spoil it for you, which takes place in the sanctuary of an old, what appears to be an old derelict or abandoned church out in the Wild West, and it's really a beautiful scene and quite a profound and very important moment. And so it's where that particular scene unfolds. As I said, I don't think it's by chance or by accident that it does unfold there. It's in the sanctuary of the church in front of these beautiful old icons, and there's lots of little moments like that where you can see there's a sort of a spiritual undercurrent to what's going on. However, I think what's even more pronounced, and I think quite important about this film, are the moral aspects of what's going on. There is quite clearly, I think, some moral commentary or examination of the issue of euthanasia there. The way in which Leonardo DiCaprio's character has his life ended in this film is very interesting, and I won't say much more about that, and don't worry, by knowing that fact you haven't had the plot ruined for you, but the way in which that particular scene and the build-up to it unfolds, I think presents some very important questions around the morality of assisted suicide and euthanasia, and also the supposed safeguards that you could or couldn't put in place, and the way in which that particular incident happens. And if you've seen the film, or once you go and see the film, you know exactly what I am talking about. And if you're not entirely sure, think about the question that is asked about blinking with your eyes to give a signal, and you'll probably get what I mean. I think another important aspect of this movie, and I think really it is the big moral theme here, is the fact that the character played by Tom Hardy, I think, is really a personification of the sort of the new will to power that you get from Friedrich Nietzsche. In fact, at one point during this film, Tom Hardy's character even talks about the fact that his father met God, came face to face with God, and killed God. Okay, now this is classic Nietzsche, the whole idea that God is dead and we make our own morality, and that is very much how his character plays out and lives out his life and his part of the story in this particular movie. It's very much about the strong making decisions for the weak. It's very much about making up your own morality. There's no real commitment to virtue. It's all about self-interest. So some very interesting moral and spiritual themes in this film. Yep, there's some stuff in there that if you don't like graphic violence, there are. I wouldn't call it gratuitous, though. It is pretty full-on in places, but it is an absolutely beautifully shot film, and more importantly, those deeper moral and spiritual themes, I think, are really important, and the film really unpacks and brings them out, I think, in a very beautiful and accessible way for a lot of people. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.